Welcome to the quest for the Green Bowl, the rise of Ralu Azath. This is a week that will most likely live on in league history with some major matchups going on in the third to last out of division slate of the year. Can you believe that? Just 2 games separate 3rd through 11th place. Just 1 game separates 8 teams in the race for 3 wildcard spots. Just 6 regular season weeks to go before the playoffs. Trust me, it goes very fast. And the storylines are plentiful with an epic battle brewing that may go down to the last week of the regular season. And while the division leaders seem to be in decent shape, no team is in line to clinch before week 12 at the moment. It's going to be a crazy stretch, and the playoffs might have begun for several teams already with how important these tiebreakers will become. This is going to be a crazy time. Of course, we'll be showcasing some of the best in the league so far in our featured match. In our 9th Game of the Week, we get a gigantic showdown between first place teams as the 5-3 multiple scoregasms, the leader of Ganymede, travels to take on top-ranked 7-1 elite Mother Tuckers who lead the EO division. And this time, the elite Mother Tuckers are hosting this thing at the Volcanic Plateaus of Vulcan.
We are back on EO this week, in a scary place with many different dangers that leaves this place forbidden for any more alien races to visit. The Volcanic Plateaus of Vulcan. The story of this area begins 4.5 billion human years ago, before the Earth had any life. EO came into existence about the same time as Jupiter, and due to Jupiter being a dimensional portal, EO became infested with creatures known as Mighyloig Migpogden, a sort of floating black blob of pure antimatter that disintegrates electrons in creatures and devours their dust. Drawn to the lava flows of these plateaus on EO, these creatures awaited any travelers for many eons. And since it was an instant demise, no one knew of the secret dangers that lived upon these plateaus. That was until the explorer Vulcan. Vulcan came from an alien race that wanted to document the universe. Strange readings from EO drew Vulcan, but after several other close calls with aggressive beings, Vulcan decided to use a hologram to search the area. It was not long before Vulcan learned of the floating abominations, and the way the hologram was rendered useless alerted Vulcan that the creatures were able to destroy electrical currents. Alarming to Vulcan, the area was observed longer. No warnings were given as beings returned to dust and devoured, and how the creatures would double in population after so many victims became apparent to Vulcan. The beings began to spread to other plateaus in this area. Vulcan contacted leaders to discuss, and the fear of these creatures leaving EO and going to other areas in the universe led to a decision. Vulcan would be used to imprison them. The plan was to have Vulcan sacrifice life for the well-being of all races. Vulcan accepted the fate as it was considered an honor to become a legend that would be passed down to future generations. Vulcan went into the plateaus with a device designed to imprison the antimatter by creating a shield of dark matter, inhibiting the electromagnetic radiation the creatures used to feed. It worked. Vulcan was devoured in horrific manner, but the creatures were now stuck in a bubble, unable to escape. Of course, this area was quarantined and designated as forbidden, though there are some unfortunate souls who are unaware and penetrate the bubble anyway. For the one that calls this place home and all who visit, make sure you don't penetrate the bubble. Though it may be difficult since dark matter is difficult to detect. If you do accidentally wander in, at least your demise will only be a painful 3 seconds. And that's how long it takes to be devoured.
The elite Mother Tuckers enter with a 64.6% chance to win, which isn't surprising due to their dominance all season long. The Scoregasms have lost 3 straight and are in desperate need of a win. To avoid being thrust back to the pack, so to speak. They still have a decent lead in the division with a 3-0 record against divisional foes, but they still need to stop that bleeding very soon. The elite Mother Tuckers have won 7 straight. They're the clear number 1 team and look to cement their hold on the EO division with a win here, especially if some other divisional foes take losses. When we look at this matchup, you got to look at Jalen Hurts versus Josh Allen. This is clearly huge for the Scoregasms as they can ill afford to lose points at that position. Damian Pierce is a tough matchup and will be looked to score with Raheem Mostert on the other side. And Tyler Lockett and Amon-Ra St. Brown will also be a key area to watch. Eckler versus Williams, the Vikings defense versus Miami are also areas that could definitely swing this match. But there are 2 players that I look at as being the ultimate key for success here. For the visiting multiple Scoregasms, we have to look at Colts running back Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he was the number 1 overall pick in pretty much every fantasy draft out there for the most part, besides a couple of strange ones. But he was obviously the number 1 pick in our draft, and the Scoregasms were looking for him to be her rock this season. And that hasn't happened. Taylor has just 462 yards and just 1 touchdown on the ground. Just 1. Last season, he had 18 rushing touchdowns and over 1,800 yards. That's a huge drop from just 1 year. His yards per carry is also down 1.2 yards from a year ago, which doesn't bode well. He has had an injury to deal with, and the quarterback play on the Colts has been subpar, so teams are obviously stacking the box trying to take Taylor away. The difficulties could continue this week. The Patriots are allowing the 5th fewest points to running backs this season, including just 1 rushing touchdown allowed. How do you bench your number 1 overall pick, though, especially someone who you know has that talent? And you got to look at Hines was just traded to Buffalo. That means Taylor is essentially the guy, minus Deion Jackson possibly getting some carries. This is a matchup where the Scoregasms need Taylor to be a workhorse, to get those goal line carries, possible touchdowns, maybe even some work in the passing game, which really hasn't happened because of Hines. But if Taylor continues to put up middling numbers, it could be a big blow, and scoring points is a premium against the top-ranked Mother Tuckers. Speaking of the elite Mother Tuckers, I want to highlight wide receiver Tyreek Hill. Hill's been a yards machine this season, and he shows no signs of letting up either. So far in 2022, he has 961 yards receiving already. That's a lot. He's obviously going to reach 1,000. The one deficiency, touchdowns. Hill has just 2 touchdowns, and both of those came in week 2. He hasn't had any since. He's had games of 160 yards or more, though, 3 times in the past 5 games. But the lack of touchdowns really means 2 things. One, that means a low yardage output would cap those points in a big way. And 2, Hill is clearly on the verge of a beast game when he does reach the end zone. We saw in week 2, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, huge performance. And that was the elite Mother Tucker's first career win in the league. But will that happen against the Bears this week? Tough to say. The Bears are allowing the 8th fewest points to wide receivers and have allowed just 4 touchdowns through the air against wideouts. Hill also has Jalen Waddle to fight against for end zone trips. Waddle has 5 touchdown catches for the Dolphins this season. Now, if Hill can get yards and a touchdown, that would be the clincher for an 8th straight win, probably. I mean, we're looking at a lot of points there. But if he's limited, it could really open up a small window for the Scoregasms to squeak through with that upset. And this game of the week is obviously going to be a banger. I mean, you have these two first place teams, but, and when you have it this late in the season, come on. But there are other matchups with a lot on the line. We start 4-4. Uncle Justy hosts 1-7. The Stellar Bitches at the Water Volcanoes of Colbeck in a Europa versus Ganymede battle. The Stellar Bitches look to put up a big score on the road again in hopes to halt the momentum of Uncle Justy, who has won 4 of the past 5 games. The computers like the Stellar Bitches on the road, giving them a 53.4% chance to win. Clearly, Henry versus Kamara, Cousins versus Tagovailoa, and the Eagles' defense versus the Chargers are key areas for Uncle Justy. He needs to win a big advantage in those 3 spots. Pittman and Mooney versus Evans and Davis will be interesting, with touchdowns possibly swinging that part of the matchup. Henderson and Hines could be X factors for each team here as well. And McLaurin clearly has the advantage at flex for the Stellar Bitches. My 6-2 Dark Ridge Dreamers hosts 4-4 Green Acres at the Icy Caverns of Varangir in a Europa versus EO match. Nick Chubb is on a bye for my Dreamers, so the computers are giving Green Acres a 59% chance to win. The Dreamers will be looking to Jefferson, Waddle, and Murray to carry the load, while Green Acres will look to Burrow, Diggs, and newly acquired Leonard Fournette. Besides those players being important, the matchups between Hill and Knox and Gibson and Allen will be key. The kicker and defense situation could also be interesting, with the Ravens and Nick Folk versus the Bengals and Jason Myers. In a Europa versus Ganymede showdown, 3-5, the Clash at Demon Head hosts 3-5. AR's ayahuasca plan at the Swirling Skies at Havar Point. The Clash at Demon Head, of course, is in bye-week hell. So even without a defense, the computers are giving AR's ayahuasca plan a 60% chance to win. AA Ron Rodgers and AA Ron Jones have a premier matchup against the Lions, so if they don't do the job here, I'm not sure they ever will. On the other side, Stafford and ETN have tougher matchups, but ETN might be matchup proof now. Swift versus Sanders can be big, especially if Swift keeps losing opportunities to Williams. AR's ayahuasca plan has the clear advantage at receiver with Hopkins and Adams versus Samuel and Woods. But Adams needs more than 2 yards, or that advantage goes bye-bye. Ertz has the edge over Conklin. Clash at Demon Head also look to get points from the Bills' defense and Justin Tucker. Could the defense and kicker be the difference again? Well, if it is, the Clash at Demon Head is going to get a big boost, but whoever wins this matchup is going to come back in a long way in the tiebreakers. Next, the 4-4 Siamese Dreamcats host 3-5. Remember the Titans at the Ship Graveyards at Beatrix Lane in an EO versus Ganymede matchup. Remember the Titans has a 69.1% chance to win because the Dreamcats still need to make a few moves with a running back on a bye. Jackson, a healthy Cup, and Goddard versus Smith, A.J. Brown, and Pitts will be key areas for the Dreamcats. Stevenson, Singletary, and Moore versus the Dreamcats' backs, and Kirk will be key areas for Remember the Titans. The kicker and defense is probably a spot the Dreamcats need to get the advantage in order to win this one. Koo and the Colts have better matchups than Suckup and the Jaguars. Lastly, we get a major matchup with 2 4-4 teams with a coveted tiebreaker win possibly on the line as EO's Risky Business hosts Europa's Low-Key Lebowski Thor at the Sulphur Mines of Barbara. Risky Business has a mind-boggling 81.4% chance to win with Mahomes versus Herbert or Dalton, Walker versus Cook, and Kelsey versus Tanyan being areas where the match could swing. Not a lot of firepower on the bench for Lebowski Thor with all of the buys, and that gives clear advantages to Risky Business with Mixon, Godwin, and even Dillon, who has a great matchup. The Patriots defense versus the Bucks defense is an area to watch. If the Patriots equal or better the Bucks, Lebowski Thor might have a tough time in this one. There will be shifting in the standings once again in the jumble that is the middle, and there shouldn't be much clarity in the wild card race. Only chaos. Must be the shadows wreaking havoc with us. And that's the content for the show. Hope you enjoyed it. Join me Sunday as Uncle Justy stops back to celebrate his second Game of the Week win in just 2 weeks. Man's on fire. Until next time, salut. Before you go, refresh your mind with the updated league standings.